What's going on, YouTube? This is the SG1 Sports SEC football channel, and we continue to give you the top 10 players on every SEC team. Today it's Kentucky, and I'll tell you what, this was maybe the toughest video that I had to do because this team lost so much off of last year's roster, especially on the defensive side, especially in the secondary. So it was really tough to put this together. You couldn't just look at stats. You had to kind of project ahead where the places of need were going to be and who might fill those spots. So I did the best that I could. Kentucky fans, you can let me know what you think about this list. But we're going to start out with number 10, and that is Landon Young. He's a former 5-star recruit on the offensive line. Last year, he got injured right before the first game of the season, so he did not play a snap. Didn't play at all last year. He was set to be the starter. A talented kid. If he can recover from his injury, I think he could be a big part of this offensive line. And they've had a great offensive line the last several years, blocking for Benny Snell. So I think Landon Young, again, could be a key to that in 2019. And he is going to be our number 10 player in our top 10 countdown. Move on now to number 9. And how about Tyrell Ajian? Last season, didn't get a lot of playing time. He did appear in 8 games. In those 8 games, he had 10 tackles. He had an interception, and he had 3 pass breakups. So he did some productive things while he was in there, and the secondary really got wiped out. So this is a spot where I think they are going to have some new guys step up for them, and I think he could definitely be a big part of that. When you look again at this secondary and what they lost, you're going to have some new faces in there. He does have some experience, and again, made the most of that experience last season. We'll move on to number 8, Quentin Bohanna on the defensive line. Just a big anchor there in the middle of that defensive line. Last year he had 17 tackles, but he had 4 tackles for loss. He had a sack. He had a forced fumble. He had a fumble recovery. So just kind of all over the place getting the stats. And 17 tackles is not great, obviously, but a lot of times the defensive tackles don't get that many tackles. They just eat up blocks, and the defensive ends can kind of clean it up, and the linebackers. And that's kind of the way Kentucky's defense works as well. So still, I think this is one of the better players on this Kentucky defense. At number 7, we go to the linebacker position. How about DeAndre Square? He had 35 tackles last year, 4 tackles for loss, had a sack, had a forced fumble, and 1 pass breakup. Josh Allen is gone, so they are going to have some players step up at that linebacker position. I don't know that Square is going to be their number 1 linebacker. We'll get to that guy in just a second, but I do think he'll be an impact player and a leader for this defense. I believe he was just a freshman last season, so big upside here for DeAndre Square. At number 6, we have another player in the secondary. He was actually, I think, 3rd or 4th on the team in tackles last season, Devontae Robinson. They moved him to the safety position. He had 42 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 fumble recoveries, 4 passes defended, and he is a very fast player. When you look up information on Devontae Robinson, one of the fastest players, maybe the fastest player on this team, and I think he's going to have a huge opportunity. Might be their most talented player in the secondary, again, with all that they lost. So we have him at number 6 on our top 10 list. At number 5, it is Terry Wilson, the quarterback. Yes, there is some criticism on his passing ability. He threw for almost 2,000 yards last year, though, 547 yards rushing, 15 total touchdowns. He was clutch, though. You go back to that Missouri game and some of the throws that he made. He wasn't always perfect. He wasn't the most consistent quarterback. But when you add in what he can do with his legs and you put it all together, I think he's a very solid quarterback, and I think he's a good leader for this Kentucky offense. I think he's going to be a big part of how well they play in 2019. And we're going to stay on the offensive side for number 4, and that is Asim Rose, or A.J. Rose. Last year, 442 rushing yards, 6.2 yards per carry, had a touchdown. Didn't get a whole lot of snaps, obviously, with Benny Snell being the guy. I think Rose now becomes the go-to guy in 2019. I go back to their spring game. I remember watching it last year. He looked phenomenal in that game, and he looked good when he got time last year. Again, 6.2 yards per carry. That is a very good average. I think he's going to be their next star at the running back position, and with that good offensive line, I think he could be a very good player for them and one of the top running backs maybe in the SEC. And we go back to that offensive line for Drake Jackson. As a freshman, he earned a starting role on the offensive line. He started every game last season at the center position. a veteran guy already, just a junior, but still he has a lot of experience. He was the #2 center in the class in the 2016 recruiting class, so you know that he's got talent, that he has experience, and I think he's going to be the leader, the anchor on that offensive line. So that gives you 2 offensive linemen in our top 10 list. Maybe the first time we have had that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But number 2, I think, is Cash Daniel. 84 tackles last season. He was among the team leaders in tackles. Had 7.5 tackles for loss. Had a sack as well. Just a tackling machine. Maybe get a little bit more productivity from him in 2019. Maybe he can cause some havoc. Maybe get a couple of turnovers or something like that. But just for what he means to this defense and all the tackles that he was able to accumulate last season, I think he's probably the best player and the leader on this defense. And at number 1, we go back to offense for Lynn Bowden Jr. Last season, 745 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Those aren't mind-blowing numbers, but he really came on late in the season, finished the season really strong, and I think he's going to be, without a doubt, their go-to receiver. I think with Terry Wilson having another year to go through the offseason, perhaps he's improved as a passer. Maybe they throw it more, and I think he could be one of the keys to this offense, and I think he's their best player on offense. Lynn Bowden, number 1 on our top 10 Kentucky players for 2019. I want to hear your thoughts on my list. What do you agree with, disagree with? Again, this was a tough one for me, so please inform me if maybe I missed a guy or something like that. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports SEC Football Channel.